Choose your fighter.
And we're live. Welcome to another episode of KPBCast, guys. With me today, I have a guy who's actually, from my understanding, he's modded UMK3 to UMK3 Plus. He also runs a classic Mortal Kombat tournament out in Cincinnati called Cincinnati Kombat Classic. With us is Drew Adkins, or TehDrewsus, as his gamer tag is known. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
It's rare that I talked to somebody that said a set got them inside the FGC, that they wanted to be part of that. And you're one of those rare people. With my little research for you, you said that the thing that got you into the FGC was Road to Evo, Long Island Joe versus Shock. I believe it was ECT.
I think so.
Yeah, UMK3 finals. What was it about that set? Now, well, before that, did you know about the FGC before that set and you just, kept your distance? Or was this your first exposure to something like the FGC?
It was kind of my first exposure to something like it. I hadn't been like really into fighting games or anything like that at a high level. What had happened was earlier, like sometime in 2012, I picked up MK Arcade Collection on the PS3, thinking like I remember these games. I was pretty good at them, and then I played through the arcade ladders. I beat the arcade ladders and everything. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try some online combat. This can't be that bad. I got like double flawless, and some guy sent me a hate message right afterwards, and he's like cussing me out over the mic, and I didn't have a mic at the time, and he's like cussing me out on the mic, telling me how bad I am, and then he, sends me a hate message afterwards. It's like, wow, okay.
That sounds
Welcome
like
to the FG.
common online trolls, right?
Yes, yes, but then like I kind of got into it a little bit more and was trying to figure out like, okay, how do I do these combos? Because I wasn't really good at video games back then. I mean, I could play some first person shooters and that was about it. Not very good. But then I started looking for like combo videos, how to do combos, and then I started finding UMK3 sets. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then I saw that Road to Evo Grand Finals, Shock versus Joe, and I became enthralled. Like I was so like watching it. I was so excited. Like I couldn't believe like how good these guys were playing, how excited people were getting in the background, and really like I couldn't imagine people were that like into the game because like I remember as a kid, like kids at my school would like make fun of me because I liked Mortal Kombat so much. And then like I got to the point where I could beat the kid that nobody else could beat, and then he quit. He's like, you like this game too much. I'm not playing with you anymore. Okay.
Why? I mean, why were people making fun of you just because you liked MK? I mean, we just did a episode with summoning. I'm assuming it was during the time when MK, the controversy basically died out. It's like, oh, it's just MK. Let's just move on. All the controversy is gone. Nobody really cares. I'm assuming that's why, because it's like, oh, are you just doing it just to be, it's like, oh, I'm going against the grain. Why were you receiving hate at school because you played MK?
Well, because at the time it was the mid '90s, and that's what kids did. It was the mid '90s, and if somebody looked different than you made fun of them for it. So, you get into a video game, and kids are going to make fun of you for it. They'll find something to make fun of you for. So, it is what it is.
You said when Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection came out, you bought it. It's like, hey, I was really good at these games. What other fighting games did you play, or what was your favorite genre of video games? Were you always a fighting game fanatic, or was it only Mortal Kombat for you? I'm sure you knew Street Fighter existed.
Oh
Or,
yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
what was your experiences with fighting games before you actually saw that set between Shock and Li Joe?
Basically just like Street Fighter 2 and all of its variants. Alpha 3. I loved Alpha 3. My cousin and I used to go back and forth on that game all the time on the Dreamcast. I have a good story about that, but it's probably not relevant here. But and then some Killer Instinct. I used to play Killer Instinct in the arcade, had it for the actually I still have it for my Super Nintendo. I got it back when it was out in the 90s, and I still have it now. So I mean, basically just like Street Fighter 2, Alpha 3, Killer Instinct, and the games.
Were you
Like
in our?
whenever
I'm sorry.
when the Nintendo 64 came out, everybody was getting like Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. I got my Nintendo 64 on Black Friday, back before Black Friday was a thing in 1996, when the
Wow.
N64 had been out for a couple months, and I picked up Mortal Kombat Trilogy with it.
Well, were you an arcade kid? You mentioned arcades, or did you grow up around the time they started dying out?
Um, I mean, I was born in '83, so I lived most of my life, in the
Just like me.
'90s there. Yeah, yeah. So, um, kind of the arcade was on its way down, but it wasn't on its way down as quickly as it was. Like it really started falling off in the in like the late '90s. But I still got a good chunk of it.
Did you have a good competitive scene around you? Because again, like we spoke with something like we spoke with a lot of people in this podcast. The arcade scene was huge, even during its dying days. Yes, you may not have been able to find much games or much arcades anymore, but did you experience any competitive scenes where you lived?
No, there wasn't much of a competitive scene where I lived, and if there was, I didn't know about it.
Oh wow, look at this. So, like you said, you basically came up during that time, right when it was just dying. So,
Hmm.
and I believe you said that you had a cousin that what game was it that you guys used to play a lot of? You mentioned it a few minutes ago, and for whatever reason I forgot.
Yeah, we played a lot of them, but the one we played quite a bit of was Alpha 3.
Oh, Alpha 3. So by all
Yeah.
means, when it comes to fighting games, you mainly just did the console. Because like you said, like we said already, arcades were out. You only had consoles, even though they probably weren't as powerful as the arcade hardware. I mean, that's what you had. Did you have any siblings to play with, or were you the only child that just loved video games? And if you had other siblings, they just moved on from it.
Yeah, I had an older brother, and fighting games weren't really his thing.
They weren't really his things.
No, no.
Well,
He
what did?
tried.
I'm sorry.
He tried. He wanted to get into them, but he just couldn't.
Is it
I didn't
because
take it easy on him either.
you didn't take it easy? Well, what did you do for competition, or you didn't take fight after the arcade scene died and your brother wasn't interested? Interested? Did you just move on to different genres, or you just played them so casually where, again, you didn't really think much of oh, let me go out and find an offline competitive scene.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was really like once I got out of school, like out of high school, uh, video games became pretty secondary. Going to college, I started college my freshman year of college. I started dating a girl, ended up getting married when I was 22, uh, and so like yeah, video games just kind of took a backseat to everything after that point. It got down to where like the only games I played was uh, uh, like NFL Blitz on the N64, GoldenEye on the N64, and occasionally when my cousin would come up to visit, we'd play whatever we could get our hands on. So, yeah, video games from like I'd say from like 19 to probably age like 28 or 29, that like 9 or 10 year span there, they just really weren't a big part of my life.
Man, NFL Blitz, that was like one of my favorite games. NBA Jam was fun, but then you come NFL Blitz and you could do the Hulk Hogan leg drop on people. Dude, that was like the greatest freaking game ever.
Yeah, NFL Blitz 2000 is one of the three games that I have that is like justifying why I keep my Nintendo 64. Like, there's a whole library worth of games that are worth playing. But for me, it's Blitz 2000, GoldenEye, and Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And I'm
Uh,
sure I'll take some heat for that, but those are the three games that I enjoy the most.
well, was there to take heat? I mean, GoldenEye defined the N64, at least when it comes
Well,
to
yeah, besides
multiplayer.
GoldenEye, I mean, there was Mario 64. There was uh, what were the Zelda games on there? I can't even
Uh,
name the
uh,
Zelda games. You know?
Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I actually
I
remember
can't even
playing.
name those.
I
So
remember I had a little makeshift tournament with a couple of friends of mine. We were playing NFL Blitz, and me and the guy actually went 4 overtimes, and the game
oh my
actually
gosh.
couldn't register anything afterwards. I mean, well, then again, that's just NFL rules in general. And I won.
Right.
And he's like, wait a minute, how the heck did you win? The game actually made me the winner because I forced the most fumbles. I've never seen to
Oh.
this day somebody more angrier than that. It's like, what the fuck?
So the angriest I ever saw my cousin when we were playing Alpha 3 was I had a win streak going against him, and it was during election season in
Oh boy.
2004, and I won't get into the specifics, but it was not just a 27 match win streak. It was a 54 round win streak. Like he did not take a single round in those 27 matches, and he started going in on politics. I was like, all right, if we're gonna do this, I'm just gonna turn the console off. But that's how heated up he got about it.
Jesus. I mean, okay. That's a. Wait, what? Jeez, I wonder how
Exactly.
would that go today? Oh boy.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
anyway, going back to the Road to Evo set,
Yeah.
what what was it exactly about that set? You already mentioned it's like, wait, people could be this competitive at this. I mean, was it also the fact that the game just moves so fast at a high at the skill levels those guys play?
Yeah.
Was it just the simple fact that it's like, man, people could do this in UMK3? I mean, I've been playing this game for a while, but you didn't have the offline experience via
Right.
arcades. What else could you describe why, something in your brain just went, this is what I want to follow. This is what I want to dedicate some time that I have for gaming. I want to follow the FGC offline.
Right. Well, the classic MK games were, growing up and up to that point, were still my favorite set of games. And they were just playing the game at a speed and at a skill level that I didn't know was even fathomable. Like just watching these guys, the way they were playing, and even the commentary helped a little bit too. I think Sweet Johnny Cage was on the mic for the majority of
Yes, he
that one,
was. Yes.
and even just the energy that he brought just through the commentary, like hyped me up some. And then like the crowd in the background, like somebody would pull a big combo and you could hear the crowd, get up for it and everything. That for me, I think was the biggest, that, and then the skill level that they played at. That's what like just had my jaw dropping the entire time. Like these guys are that good playing at that level, and people get excited about it. It was awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned the crowd, and I'm sure you've seen the Shock episode, and we did mention it on there. And like you said,
Yeah.
some of the people back there are still, some of the biggest names within the community. And you're right. When you see a crowd, and even a crowd back then who weren't really knowledgeable with that game, I mean, they were behind everything, every little combo, every drop combo, every confirm. And we all know Mortal Kombat over the years, after all the controversy was done, it was more looked at as a joke compared to other games like Street Fighter. But again, like crowd reaction, it sells a lot. And
Yeah.
like you said, that was one of the biggest things for you, just watching, man. Even though some of these people, you may have not known them at the time, maybe they don't know the game, they know of it, but it's just seeing this game at this such a high level, and that game moves so ridiculously fast. The crowd was also a big factor for you, right?
Right. Yeah. And like the turning point, I think, was actually kind of early on in the match. It was because Shot came up out of losers finals, and Joe went through went through the winners bracket all the way. But Shock pulls this combo with Sonya against Joe in the corner. Just this pop up combo into a jump kick, and then the crowd's going, and then he
Yeah.
hits him with the roundhouse, and the crowd gets a little bit louder, and then he hits him with the leg grab, and like Sweet Johnny Cage basically breaks the mic
Yes,
out
he
of
does.
excitement, and then Shock loses the match, but just all the excitement right then and there was this is the best game in the world. I don't care how good other games at the time might have looked compared to it. I don't care how technically sound some other games might have been. Like this was like the game.
Of course. Now you watched this. What year did you watch it? The that
Uh,
set.
Sometime in late 2012 or early 2013, probably
And
late 2012.
how did you come up across it? Do you just see it on YouTube? It's like, oh look, UMK3. Let me just see what's going on. How did you come across this set?
That's what it was. Uh, I was just searching for UMK3 videos on YouTube and it popped up.
Oh, sweet. So after you saw that set and your mind was blown, what was your next step towards, trying to see how can I do this? How could I be part of the offline community?
Well, the offline part for me still was a couple years away, but I started playing. I started putting more time into the game, posting more on Test Your Might. Um, back that was back when the classic section was a lot more active
Of
than what it
course.
is now, and finding more people to play on MK Arcade Collection, getting MAME on the computer and playing people online through MAME. Just basically playing as many matches as I could against as many people as I could, trying to learn more about the game. Uh, and the online experience for the classic MK games is haphazard at best. Um, there's just the connection quality. It's either great or it's terrible. And even when it's a good connection, it's not the best depiction of high quality play. Um, so like there's still something lacking with the online stuff. Um, but I finally decided I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, I'll just keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
uh,
Go ahead, my
uh,
friend.
I thought it would be like, because I tried to hold a couple of online tournaments on MKAK for the PSN, and both times I got like 12 people. Both times two guys didn't show up. One guy tried to cheat, like he got beat and he told me that he won. It just terrible things. Uh, but then I was talking to somebody else, and he was like, "Dude, no high level players want to play in an online tournament like that. Well, why not?" He said, and I think his exact words to me were, "Any scrub with a bad connection can beat a good player." So okay, so uh, I put together an online event and this is fast forwarding a bit, but I put together an online event in 2016 here in Cincinnati. I think it was sometime in February back
Were you
then.
still using the arcade collection, or did you realize early? I don't know if the person who told you about a scrub could beat a high level player even if he's crappy connection. Were you using AK, or did you realize by then that were you informed that the AK collection basically had so many bugs, so many bad frames, it was not an arcade perfect? Did you know how much people, did you know how much people look down on those kinds of
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, by that time, I mean, at some point in like 2014 or 2015, I was playing MAME almost exclusively. It was like I would go back to Arcade Collection just to try to play people and find people and tell them to get MAME so we could play on a better platform. So yeah, by 2016, it was basically MAME exclusively, and that's what we played the tournament on.
I've actually never had MAME on my computer, believe it or not. Mainly because I've just had access to offline play as much as I have here in the East
Mhm.
Coast. But how much better is the MAME online back then compared to the MKAK?
Um, Online MAME is just leaps and bounds better than Arcade Collection.
Okay.
Uh, even in the the best connections possible, uh, MAME is going to be just because it runs through the Arcade Collection runs through the Unreal Engine, and it adds a few frames of delay even on just to your inputs. I mean, it did good things with the sound. Like the sound is great on Arcade Collection, but the inputs, because everything runs through uh, Unreal Engine into emulation, uh, it adds extra frames of delay, and it's not good quality play.
So
So
you so you organized something. You said 2016. How did that go for you? Was that your first time organizing an online tournament?
2016 was the first offline tournament. I had a couple online tournaments back in like 2014,
Okay.
maybe one in 2015. Yeah, but organized an offline event in 2016.
Oh, offline.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, offline. Ended up with 13 people, and we played. We had one event, and that was UMK3. Uh, and we had a couple of recognizable names like Juggernaut. I think anybody in the classic community knows who Juggernaut is.
Of course.
Yeah, and No Doubt was there. He won the tournament. There's a guy that had a couple names, Miss Spin, uh, uh, a name that you can't say now because it's not a nice name. And I think he went by Katie or something else. But he has a guy posing posing as a girl. It's a long story there that doesn't need to be gone. We don't need to go into it here. But he was there. Several other guys, or that was probably like the three guys like that brought the most name recognition to the tournament. There's a guy that's fairly prominent, like in the actual like arcade community. Uh, his YouTube channel is Your MK Arcade Source.
I know that
He
guy
was
very
there.
well. Great
Yeah,
channel.
yeah, he was there. Some other guys like McLovins from back in the Xbox days was there. Um, a guy named Dubson. I don't know if it was just Dubson or Dubson 965 back in those days. He was there. Um, I can't go through like all the names. I can't remember all the names. I'll probably leave somebody out and feel bad. But it was a very hype event that everybody really enjoyed.
Let me ask you this question before we go on with that, because that's definitely a topic we're going to hit on big. Before you decided to start organizing offline events, take us a little bit between the time that you found about the FGC and between the time that you decided to start running events. That time frame right in the middle, what was it like for you?
Um, it trying to navigate in the certain aspects of the community. I think I don't know the best way to put it.
Well, by the
There's,
way,
you know,
are we talking about only the NRS community, or are we talking about the FGC community in whole? Did you only want to stay to the NRS because that's what you knew, or were you trying to get involved with everything?
honestly, I was just trying to stay involved with the classic MK part of
Okay,
the
all right.
community. Yeah, that's it.
And again, that's all you wanted to stick to. But again, take us a little bit through your timeline between when you found them and before you started wanting to organize events. Well, what was it like? Was it very welcoming? Did you see some things you may not have liked, how some players were treated? I'm sure you got a lot of shit talk online because that's what some people just do. Take us
Yeah. Oh,
through that.
yeah. A lot of that. A lot of talk. Um, Surprised at how angry people got uh, over a video game. I mean, like I'm pretty relaxed most of the time. I like to think I'm soft spoken, and I occasionally do get frustrated. Of course, everybody does. But I was really surprised at how upset some people got. But I kind of just tried to weed those people out and just stay with hang with people that were into the game but were also cool. Like there's a few people, like I call it my kind of my own core, like my own yeah, basically my own core of guys that
They're your
I
group.
yeah, they're my group, and they're the ones that have been there since like basically since I got into the game back in 2012 2013. The guys that like they were better than me, at the game, but they were cool enough to be like, hey, this is here's what you can do better. Let's set up some time. Let's just play a whole bunch of matches, and get you better at it.
You've you say, like you say, you have your own core group. Classic MK, not many people talk about that community. They like to stay separate from the NRS community, what we know it now. You said it yourself, you stay together with one certain group. why was it that that group and the other ones just didn't get along? Why sometimes they would just go at each other. I mean, we see that with almost every FGC group, but take us in a little bit about why in the classic MK community, why that is. Why is it that just some people just they rather shit talk versus, hey, let me take Drew and let me show him some things that because it just means more players for our game. Well, why is just there those amazing dynamics even in such a small group like the classic MK community?
Well, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know for sure, and I certainly don't want to speak for anybody else. Uh, it's a small community, right? And if you can bring somebody into a small community, you have a chance to grow the community. Uh, and the new modern games, the community's big enough, I guess. I mean, it's big, right? The classic community, we had, I think, 31 people show up for the tournament in 2019,
Wow.
which is a good showing for in the Midwest, and a classic game. Uh, 31 guys, probably I want to say 25, 26 of them traveled from, more than a couple hundred miles away,
Wow.
to come in and stay for a couple days and play a whole bunch of classic MK. So it's almost more, if you want to look at it, it's almost like a brotherhood of guys that, this is our game, or this is our style of game. Um, and, there's not many of us, so we're going to stick together. Uh, I I I stay out of the politics of some of the newer stuff, like guys hiding tech, or not divulging stuff that they found, stuff like that. It's like when we find something new, mind you, this game's like 25 years old. When we find something new, it's like, guys, you got to check this out. You watch this. I got 98% in the corner with Melina or something. You got to watch this. And so yeah, it's a little bit different. Like, you know, um, we want the community to grow, and I think when you have a small community, you have to be a little more giving, with what you have, and I think that's why I like this community. I don't want to say like I dislike other communities, but and I'm kind of a one trick pony, right? Like I can play the classic MK games pretty well. I'm serviceable at Street Fighter. Uh, the old Killer Instinct games, I'm pretty much okay at. But any other game out there like MK9, terrible. MK11, I didn't quite finish story mode. MKX, I've never played it. Okay, I played Injustice because one of my buddies wanted me to, and it was fun. I played as Scorpion, but I not have, and the lack of free time, and also the fact that I'm not that great in general, at video games. So if I can pick like one or two to be really good at, then I'll pick those one or two, and they just happen to be games that are from the 90s.
Is it easier when the community is smaller to try to get them together?
Um, oh, well, you have a bigger community. If you have people that can't show up, you still have a lot of people showing up. Uh, a smaller community, um, we try to do. I only hold one event, so uh, and with it's in April now every year, as opposed to February. It's easier for people to travel, I think, in the spring than it is in the winter. Um, but it might be easier to keep people together, to get people together, uh, especially the online stuff. Like get them together physically. I think a smaller community might be easier when it's only like once a year.
Right.
The esports stuff, like the bigger events. You got Big E's events, and you got all these other events, like on the East Coast and other parts of the country. If I don't see my buddy here, I'll probably see him at the next event. With us, it's like it's one time. It's one time. One yeah, like one weekend out of the year, we're going to be like MK, like camels. They can drink drink a whole crap ton of water at once, and then not drink any water for a couple weeks and be fine.
Yeah.
We get as much much high quality offline MK with as many people as we can get in a very short period of time, and then we just keep the hype going for the next year.
Before 2016, when you decided to become an organizer, did you attend any offline events?
That's a good question. Um, no, I had not. At least not on purpose. Um, I think I walked into Arcade Legacy once when there was an event going on. I just kind of rubbernecked a little bit and, kind of looked around, saw what they were doing, and that was about it.
What was it that they were doing? Street Fighter tournament, Mortal Kombat tournament, Tekken tournament?
I can't remember. I can't even remember what it was. I think there were several games going on. I can't remember what they were though.
Well, did you regret not going to many offline events after you found out about the offline competition FGC, or like you say, you just had too much more going on in life where you could only dedicate but so much time to video games?
Yeah, like I don't really regret it because I was in a different place in life. Like the 2009 and 2010 events. Uh, I was a pretty busy guy. I had a 2-year-old at home. I was married, uh, and I was going to school as well as working full time. The idea of driving 10 or 11 hours to an offline event just it didn't seem realistic or reasonable. So
It wasn't
it
plausible.
was yeah, it wasn't plausible. Now um, I got divorced in 2011,
Hmm.
and between getting used to being on between getting used to being single and seeing my kids a few times a week, I had to find something to do to fill the void, and Mortal Kombat was right there.
There you go.
So yeah, yeah.
26.
So
Yeah.
like
Mhm. I'm sorry. I'm
so
sorry. Keep going.
that's right. I don't regret I don't regret not being part of the community prior to that, but I'm glad I'm part of the community now.
There you go, man. That's good to hear. 2016 comes along. Take take us through your mindset at the time, because you said you decided to organize an offline event. What goes through your mind where it's like, especially you live in the Midwest, it's a little bit harder out there from my understandings. I mean, I know Combo Breaker is out there, but that's a different beast compared to like a small little tournament. What goes
Mhm.
through your mind? What convinces you? It's like, what? Let me do something. I may not get as many players as I'm hoping, but what goes through your mind? And when do you decide to pull the trigger to say, I'm gonna do a classic Mortal Kombat tournament? I'm gonna be the guy who's gonna want to give some of these players, hopefully that are gonna show up, a chance to have an offline experience.
Um, I just kind of floated the idea out there, like let's get something together. Um, you know, UMK3, pretty standard tournament rules. I didn't know how many people would come out. It was done in conjunction with another player who uh, financially supported the game behind the scenes. He put some prize money into the pot. I think that may have attracted some people. Um, I didn't know how many people would come. I really didn't. But I thought, you know what, I knew of like 5 or 6 guys in the immediate area that were within like a half hour of me that played classic Mortal Kombat that were pretty good at it. And I talked to some guys that said, dude, if you have an offline event, I will come to it. So, with all those things, I think we ended up having like 17 or 18 guys that said they would come. And of course, some people don't show up.
Of
But it
course.
basically started as an idea like, what do we have to do to get people to come out to an event? And I think it was basically just put something together, stream it, and people will come out because people want to play high level offline games.
Was that an idea in your brain for quite a while, or was it just a spur of the moment thing?
I had been thinking about it for a while. It was that point sometime in like 2015 where that guy told me like, well, any scrub with a bad internet connection can beat a good player. And he's like, oh, and by the way, I think my Cyrax would beat your human smoke 10-0 offline. I'm like, oh, is that right? I'm pretty sure that's your alcohol talking, but you know, I'll have an offline event sometime. If you want to come out, you can. And he didn't, but that's okay.
That's probably he could have stayed home. You had a good time regardless, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Where did you hold it? At an arcade or?
Yeah, it was at Arcade Legacy, kind of on the suburban outskirts, the northernmost part of Cincinnati. Uh, Arcade Legacy. Jesse owns the place. He's a really good guy. The first event, like he let us set, he had us set up in the arcade. Um, he let us use his streaming equipment, uh, and it was just like a $8 venue fee or something, and that was good for access to the arcade, everything in the arcade all day long. So it wasn't just like you come in, play MK, and go home. Like there's a whole probably like 4 or 5 thousand square foot arcade to play in, as well as other consoles and things that were out there for play.
Actually, it's
So
funny. We just finished talking to Summoning, and when him and James MK started their little offline series, I did ask him the same question. I mean, I didn't really ask you because you already answered it, but well, you know what? I'll ask it for you anyway. I mean, how does an arcade owner? Well, you said the guy's a really good guy. It sounds like he's a gamer, and he opened up a arcade, just to bring back something from the past that he loved. But how was it talking to him? It's like, hey man, I want to come and bring a Mortal Kombat tournament here. How did he take the idea, and how did you approach him with it?
well, we had built up a little bit of a relationship prior to that. I had met another player who's local, McLovins, and we met up at Arcade Legacy, and he knew Jesse a whole lot better than I did. Um, but through McLovins, um, I got to know Jesse a little bit more. Built a relationship with him. Like I said, he's a great guy. Likes the classics, keeps his machines in good shape, which is kind of uh,
Oh,
not
it's
there.
a must if you're gonna hold something at an arcade.
Yeah, well, there's a 16-bit down here in Cincinnati that it's just like the obviously it's like it's a bar with arcade games in it, and it's treated more like a bar with arcade games as a storage facility.
Right.
I went in there one time and the UMK3 machine, half the buttons didn't work. I had to random select to get to the bottom row of characters because I couldn't use the down button. And then I got Ermac, who all of his special moves involve, you know, going down, and so I had to win using everything but down. Uh,
Drunk people don't
but
notice when the buttons don't work.
right, but yeah, Jesse, he runs events of his own at Arcade Legacy, and so over time, I was like, I know you run some events up here. Um, would it be cool if we came up here and we had a classic Mortal Kombat tournament? And he was good with it. I mean, I don't remember the exact conversation with it being 5.5 years ago, but yeah, he was cool with it, and people came and people played. And what was even cooler than that, though, like just having the tournament, we were having casuals before the tournament started, and people would just walk up like, "Hey, what are you guys playing?" "Oh, we're playing UMK3." "Oh, okay." Can I play? Sure. Hand them a controller. They play 2 or 3 matches. They get their butts kicked and they walk away, unfortunately. But yeah, because people think, oh, they're playing an old Mortal Kombat game. Here comes a jump kick, and I'm just going to jump all over the place, which is a terrible idea. But and we had some people occasionally like just kind of filter in and out during the tournament watching. Some people stuck around for almost the entire tournament, just standing there watching. So and that was pretty cool. Uh, yeah, that's kind of how the arcade thing went as far as getting the tournament set up.
Let me ask you this, more on this. What are the logistics like, you know, organizing? a tournament for a game where it's Mortal Kombat. It's not Third Strike, where if anybody announces a Third Strike tournament, chances are you're going to get about 40 to 50 people. It has a bigger fan base. We understand that. But what are the logistics for you? You only have the forums. There's not really, I mean, there's a rabid fan base, but it's not a big fan base. But
Right.
so what are some things that go through your mind knowing well that I'm going to put my foot down, I'm going to be the guy who does it. What kind of things go through your mind? It's like, how am I going to advertise it? Who am I going to talk to? Walk us through that. What are the logistics of running a classic Mortal Kombat tournament?
There is a lot of social stuff that goes on. Hang on a second. Setting things up, test your might. The classic section is just not what it used to be, unfortunately, but I still post there so people are aware of it. Through there's a couple of Facebook pages that are kind of dedicated to Classic Arcade MK. Twitter, there's some people from Twitter, that are interested in it. It's a lot of, and then there's Discord. There's I'm looking at my Discord right now and I see 5 Mortal Kombat Discords that I'm a part of. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of hey, I'm having this tournament. Let me show you some archived footage from events in the past. Link up some YouTube videos. Do stuff like that to get people hyped up about it. Advertise the fact that it's on a basically controller neutral platform, that it doesn't matter if you're a pad player or what pad you play on, or if you play on a stick. It's accessible for you. That's a big draw of it, is you have a cabinet only tournament, and unfortunately you end up getting probably you get probably about half of the people that you would expect to come otherwise that would show up. And then the quality of the gameplay is going to be lower too, because not everybody grew up with an arcade around the corner, or not everybody has an arcade machine in their kitchen or in their dining room now, which I've seen that, or just somewhere in their house. And even then, not everybody has the fight stick from MK9. I just recently, a few months ago, acquired a stick setup from, it's an Xbox MK9 stick that I just started practicing on. But not everybody has access to those things. So what when we put it out there, we say, it doesn't matter, if it's a PS3 controller, PS4, any console controller, you can even use a keyboard if you want to. You just have to respect the input and the button rules. One button for an input, one input for a button. Hold on a second, my cat wants to say hi. There we go. But having a controller neutral platform, I think, is a big draw for guys too.
All right then. So we've already talked about the logistics of it. Now you're gonna go in, and here you are. It's like, holy crap! I said I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna, here's the day. What goes through your mind when the day starts? It's like, well, I got this tournament I organized. Let us know about that. Was this the first ever tournament for any kind of video game you've ever organized?
Yeah, it was.
Did anybody give you any pointers?
I had talked to a few people that were helpful. Like Shock was helpful. A couple local guys were pretty helpful. Just talking about things to do. And there's one guy that he's local. Used to work for Arcade Legacy. Like, he set up some overlays for me and everything. Showed me how XSplit worked. I had no idea how any of that worked at the time. But he showed me how all that worked. Told me what to do, what not to do, stuff like that. So I did get a lot of help. I was more nervous at the beginning of everything, and I still get nervous. So there's the lead ups before the event. There's okay, we're 6 months out, we got to do this. We're 3 months out, we got to do this. 2 months out, 1 month out. It gets to the week of the event, and I'm stressed out the entire week. Like I'm stressed out to the point where like I basically like I eat about half as much as I normally do because like how many people are going to show up? All these people said they have, you know, there's been some smack talk. Am I going to have to deal with? Am I going to have to deal with guys getting real intense with each other? Fortunately, that's never happened. Um, at least not at my events, it hasn't. I saw it at Summer Jam in 2018, but at my events, no, it's never happened. Everybody's pretty cool. But you worry like what kind of issues are going to pop up. You got to tell people like hey, I've got this off-brand 360 controller that I bought at GameStop 5 years ago. Can I hook it up? Like, well, yeah, you can try. I hope you brought a driver with you in case it doesn't work. Uh, and that's just like a learning experience for me and for other people as well. Uh, but yeah, like the event starts, you hit the live button on the stream, and it's just like you kind of get into that zone, and uh, you kind of have to go from player to tournament organizer slash commentator slash bracket runner because it's a small event, and if you have half the guys that are in the tournaments doing things, everybody's going to be stressed out. So I have like one or two guys that I ask to kind of trail me and help me out and stuff because I like to play in the events too, and I feel really bad about asking somebody to not play so they can help run the event. And of course, things go over. Things take longer than you expect them to. People get frustrated about that. But all in all, it's still a great time because like once the lights are off and the tournament's over for the night, I think we ended up like Saturday night into Sunday. We ended up like going out to a Waffle House at like 1:30 in the morning, and everybody just like hung out there until they left, and then we all showed back up at 10 or 11 o'clock on the Sunday morning to finish out all the event. So it goes from like almost this like exponentially down, like oh god, here we go again. Why do I do this? To oh man, this is the best thing ever.
You mentioned something. It's hard to go from player to organizer. It is hard because, again, Classic MK, very small community. I mean, what are the chances are you going to get to play with some of the best MK players, right? Well, I mean,
Right.
how many chances are you going to get to play offline? How hard was it for you? Did you said you played it at your first event, or did you completely do it just organizer role?
Yeah, I've played at all of my events. Um, I think there was one year, there was one event. I was just so burnt out. I'm like, guys, I'm just going to commentate. You guys play. I had one guy stand up like, "What are you doing? Why aren't you playing?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm beat. I'm beat." You can only run on caffeine and 50% combos for so long. And at some point, you got to be like, "I'm done." But I was so tired and burnt that I was like, "I'm going to commentate. You guys play."
What was the reaction from the players when they realized that, you know what, Drew is gonna do this. It's just not talk. And I'm sure you've gotten some stories where some people may, like you said, there were a few people who drove quite a while, or maybe they've taken the plane, and they get to this arcade where you hold your event, and they meet you for the first time in you meet them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
what was the reaction from everybody? Was it just happiness where it's like, we have something. This may not be an annual thing, but at least somebody, instead of just talking and talking and talking, he actually did it. How much appreciation did you receive from the players?
I got a lot. Like after the event, Juggernaut came up and gave me this big old hug. Like thanks for doing this, man. This was awesome. Uh, and it wasn't just. And I tell the guys the same thing at the end of the events. At the end, like Sunday night when we were all packing it up, I'm like, I just tell them like, guys, like this is not my tournament. I just put it together. You guys make it what it is, and it stems from that first event. Like I didn't know what to think. Like I wasn't sure if it was just going to be some big old cluster where hopefully we get done before they kick us out, or if it was going to go as well as what it did. And it went really well. And these guys were like, "You got to do this next year too." It's like we got to do this every year, and it's grown every year. I think we had 13 the first year, and then we had 17 and 21, and then 31. So,
Wow.
and we add some events every year. Like the first, like 2016, it was just UMK3. We played we played some trilogy for a little while, but then the arcade closed. It got to be like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're like, "You guys got to go." Okay.
I get out.
Uh, yeah. 2017, we decided to have Saturday. We started it a little bit early on Saturday, and then we had Sunday as well. We had a full-on trilogy event, and we had 2v2 as well as I think random select.
Oh, nice.
We did the same thing in 2018. 2019, last year, we added some MK2 events, and those went really well. We had some guys that showed up just to play MK2, and then I think we ended up having like 6 events last year. So we had all the same. We had UMK3. We had teams, which team like UMK3 2v2, where one person controls each fighter, is like super intense. Like that, I think is the most fun event. Like it's more fun than the main event because you got 4 guys sitting around a screen playing Mortal Kombat, and it gets super intense, which is the intensity is part of what makes it so fun. Like it doesn't matter if you beat somebody 3-0 and you double flawless them 3 times in a row. Like you're still like your knuckles are white and your hands are shaking after the set, just because it's so much fun. Um, but yeah, we've added events every year, and this year we're actually going to have to take one of the events off because we were expecting so many people. Like we were expecting like 35, 40 people this year. And
Wow.
of course, we got hit with the great human malware of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So we we had to had to push it to next year. But
You know,
uh,
your event, your event is done. Everybody goes home. Drew wakes up in the morning the next day. Do you have a headache? Do you realize what you just did? How do you feel about it?
um, I feel like I gotta wait another year for this because like it's so much fun. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's the dread and the nerves in the last couple weeks building up to the event. But once you're there, and there's no turning back. And then there's guys that they come in, you have a great time, uh, and then they leave, and it's almost like a little bit of emptiness. Like like from an event perspective, from an organizer perspective, it's like okay, it's over. I don't have that stress. I'm good. But then it's like, okay, I just said goodbye to like 15 of my friends that I'm not going to see for another year.
But again, like you said, the stress is over. And you're right, you're not going to see some of your friends for another year. Do you get working on the next one right away, or you only wait for the feedback from everybody? Do you go right off the bat to the forums maybe a day or two later, give everybody time to rest, gather their thoughts?
Yeah, I typically I decompress from it. I let everybody get back and get settled, um, and it's not a bad thing. A lot of guys don't have a problem giving you feedback, which is fine. They're never malicious about it. It's like
No.
while we do it, we could do it this way next year. We could try doing it another way. Uh, the biggest one this year was this past year, 2019. It ran so long because we had like I think 21 players in the main event. Like there were 31 people total at the event. Some people just came for MK2, and some people didn't play at all. They just showed up to hang out and play casuals. But it's like we have to do something about the time. So, we only have so much of it. We get like 12 or 13 hours on Saturday, 12 or 13 hours on Sunday, and that's a lot to cram in when you're trying to get it all on stream. So I decided after consulting with some of the guys in the community, I just decided that instead of just doing a flat out double elimination tournament, that we would do pool play, and then from the pools we would cut to the top 12 or something like that. That way, you know, the guys that go 2 and out don't just have to sit there watching, for the in a 20 some odd player double elimination tournament, going 2 and out, that's an awful lot more combat to just sit around and watch, as opposed to being in it and playing. And I actually felt bad about that, because there were I think 3 or 4 guys that went 2 and out.
Wow.
And they just kind of sat there, waiting for the next event to start. I mean, they were watching Mortal Kombat and hanging out, but it's like, if you do pool play with like 7 or 8 guys per pool, you're at least going to get 7 matches in, as opposed to 2.
What did the
Yeah,
online trolls? What kind of feedback did the online trolls give you? The ones that
I don't
it's like, you guys are never gonna come in. Did you just ignore them?
Yeah, I do. Used to not ignore them, but then I decided it was just better to ignore it than waste my breath, or waste the key waste time on the keyboard, trying to respond to them. Yeah.
All right, man, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Now, you said this is a Cincinnati Combat Classic. Unfortunately, because of
Mhm.
2020, so it's been run since 2016. I'm sure you already got some dates for 2021. I believe I saw a flyer for them
Mhm.
already. But now we already established that that's what you're doing now. So a lot of people don't know, and why would they? Again, Mortal Kombat compared to other classic games is a very small community. Very, the ones who support, especially a lot of people from Latin America, they support what you're doing with modding these games. You modded UMK3, I believe it's called UMK3 Plus. When did you
Mhm.
decide to start doing that, and what was the interest?
I think it was in sometime in 2017, because Paul had gotten MK2 Plus off the ground.
Now, who's Paul for
Uh,
anybody who doesn't know?
he goes by ZPaul2Fresh8. He's got a YouTube channel out there as well, and he's the creator of Mortal Kombat 2 Plus, Mortal Kombat Plus, co-creator with me on UMK3 Plus. MortalKombatPlus.com is the website, best place that you can go to get information about those games. But I watched what he was doing. I got in touch with a guy named Abystus, who is pretty good hacker. Like, you name a midway game, and he's probably been in there hacking it,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool to see.
Wow.
Combined with a couple of other hacks that I had seen out there, and some. Now, I was never active in the Mugen community, but I'd seen some of it, and it's just like, the thought is good, the execution is terrible. Uh,
All these
but it's
overpowered, ridiculous characters. But you know what?
yeah,
People love them. Like
Bear Sub Zero,
Omega
Bear Sub
God
Zero.
for us KOF players. Omega God Chrysalid times 1,000. It's like, well, why is this necessary? But people love it.
Yeah, well, there's my favorites are Bear Sub Zero and Cyber Aqua,
Yes.
like Robot Aqua.
But again,
But yeah, and there were some other hacks of the game that were going around that may not have been as well received as they could have been. And that's actually why Paul started MK2 Plus, was because there was a hack of MK2 that came out that he was just kind of disappointed in, and he thought, maybe I can do something. And he did, but I started talking with him, talking with Abystus, a couple guys within the Mortal Kombat community, and it's like, okay, maybe I can do something with UMK3. Went to YouTube, and like, you can see all these different bugs and glitches and stuff. It's like, oh, we got to figure out a way to fix those. Rain's not in UMK3 in the arcade, but he's in Trilogy and he's in the console versions. It would be cool to add him. Give Classic Sub-Zero a second fatality. Competition in the games, as far as like, I don't know if you've played much UMK3, but like, you can, if you win 4 or 5 games in a row and then you lose one, your score resets. So instead of it showing like 4-1,
Hmm.
it's now 0-1. And I
Yeah.
think that might have been like the first thing I did when I was hacking UMK3, and back then it was revision 1.3.
Do you have a
Like I,
background in computer engineering, or is this self-taught?
it's self-taught. I am a, uh, I work in IT. I always have. I was always a hardware guy. Um, I took a HTML class in college. I don't really consider that programming, uh, but uh, what programming I do know started back in 2017.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, I decided that like I want to get into this. I want to learn it. Uh, I didn't know that I'd still be working on it. 3 years later. Fortunately, I have a wife that supports one hobby and tolerates this hobby. So uh,
What language do those What language do those games use, or do you have to?
uh, they're in assembly,
Jesus
and
Christ.
it started out using the main debugger and a hex editor, and just going through the Texas Instruments TMS 34010. That's the CPU that's used. Going through the user guide to figure out what these different commands did, how they worked, memory, writing to memory addresses, memory flags, all this other stuff. Big, big learning curve. And somebody said like, you should learn on like, asteroids or something, or Pac-Man, not Mortal Kombat. It's like, I'll dive in feet first, uh, but like honestly, like I forget some of the things that I've done. Like I have to go back to the change log sometimes, because like it all just kind of bleeds in together now, as far as the changes. But what really got me into it was like, I want to fix the glitches, you know, keep the gameplay as it is, keep the revision 1.2 gameplay what it is. Maybe add some options for balance, but not hard code them into the game. But I want to complete the arcade experience for UMK3.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from people who adore and idolize that game?
Pretty good feedback. There's always going to be the unrealistic ones. Like I have one guy who occasionally hits me up like, "Dude, I'll give you $1,000 if you put Cyber Sub Zero in the game." It's like, one, no. Two, I'm not. I didn't get into this to make money, so don't like try to throw money at me to get what you want. But like Cyber Sub Zero doesn't fit into the classic timeline,
No.
so he's not going to be in the game. Uh, and there's always the fly by nights that are like, hey, do this, put this in the game, and it doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And like, okay, well, I'm not interested anymore. Okay, great, thank you. But there's been people like since the beginning that have been following the project for the past 3 years that have been supportive. Um, that they'll kind of like, hey, it would be cool if you did this, because it would add to the experience of whatever. It's like, that's actually a pretty good idea. So, uh, and beta 2 has been in the works since beta 1 launched back in September. So, like I said, I was going to take a break and catch up and play some games that I wanted to play. I bought Resident Evil 2 Remake back at the beginning of 2019, and it's still in the plastic
Damn
cover.
it. I was about to say it. I'm like, it's still in the plastic, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is.
Is it because you feel pressure? As if like, oh, if I don't work on it, I'm letting the guys down. Is it does it have something to do with it?
No, it doesn't. There's no pressure from people to keep going, because there was a period of time, sometime in 2018. Abystus likes to give me a hard time because that's when I started on Rain. I started on Rain sometime in like the spring of 2018, and then I rebuilt the deck at the back of my house. And Abystus used to give me a hard time. Like, man, he didn't want to build rain so much that he went out and built a deck in his backyard instead. Like, like man, like I had to do it. Like it had to be done. I was gonna walk out the back door and fall 8 feet. You know. But no, there's really no pressure. I don't think, at least not that I feel in a bad way. Uh, sometimes if I get sidetracked on something, there's kind of nudging in the right direction from some people that are really supportive of the game. But no, there's no pressure. I don't feel that pressure of letting people down at all.
I've only ever played vanilla UMK3. If I were to fire up MAME or however I could play UMK3 plus or MK2 plus, but let's specifically stay with UMK3 plus because that's what you mainly work at. Would I recognize the game, or have you changed so much? Like maybe new moves for characters, or our glitch. Did you do your best to get rid of glitch jabs? I mean, how would you tell somebody who's only ever played vanilla UMK3 that this is still the same game? It's just that all the BS is gone. Or have you changed so much of it where I would actually think it's a completely different game?
No, it's the same game. From a gameplay perspective, I would tell you that glitch jabs are still there. As a high level player, they are beatable.
Mm-hmm.
They're absolutely beatable. But there is a combat code now to lock out glitch jabs. So like you
Sweet.
are pushing the punch button, but as soon as you hold in block to try to keep punching and block at the same time, you're just going to go into the block animation.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a combat code for that. There hasn't been any real gameplay changes. And when I say real gameplay changes, I'm talking no, like, hey, this would be a good idea. Let's put this in the game. There have been bug fixes. Like player one sector can fire a homing missile and then shoot a regular missile, where in 1.2, player two sector can't do that. He can only have one missile out at a time. And it doesn't make sense to have whichever side of the screen that you're on, or whichever controller side you have, be handicapped. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So we fixed that bug. It was like, well, should they both be able to do it, or should neither of them be able to have both missiles out? And it's like, sector is bad enough as it is. If you take that away from them, nobody's going to play them anyway. So both sides can have both missiles out now. Player two jacks, you couldn't be charging low kick for ground pound and do a dash punch. So that got fixed. Some moves where you could get thrown while you were invisible and stay invisible, those got fixed. Shang Tsung has a morph for human smoke and robot smoke now, as well as a noob, Cybot, and Rain.
That's right. He could have morphed into robot smoke. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and what's funny is that was just like poor coding, right? Because in the game code, there's actually a spot for the robot smoke morph, but there's no inputs that would send you over to that code.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
it was lazy. Coding by Midway back then, huh?
That's basically the reason why I've been at this for as long as I have. Lazy. Well, I don't want to say lazy because we could, I think 25 years ago they wouldn't have thought, oh man, these guys are going to be critiquing us using a debugger, telling us how bad our code was. The game back then was designed to take your quarters,
and
that's it.
Of course.
I don't think they ever saw the days where machines would be on a free play and guys would be like, oh, let me show you this, and I don't have to spend $5 in quarters to do it. And then beyond that, MAME with save states and debuggers and things like that. I don't think they foresaw that as like, okay, guys are going to use this to expose crappy or rushed code. And I don't think it was laziness as much as it was they were rushed. MK3 was already rushed out to the public as it was, to the point where they were already working on UMK3 before MK3 was released to the public.
Wow. Guys like players like Shock, Juggernaut, Dead. We know the big, we know the players. Crazy Dominican, AC 1984. Have they played enough of the game where maybe they may think this should be the tournament standard version instead of the vanilla one, where we have a guy like TehDrewsus, who has taken the time to remove all these glitches and everything. Has there been any thought about making it a tournament standard?
Um, we've run it as a tournament standard at CKK since last year, and I think it'll be the tournament standard for CKK. Um, Nobody has objected to it because they all know that as far as the gameplay goes, what happens when you have, when your inputs count, has anything changed? And the answer is no. Okay, so like the bugs that were addressed that I told you, and that Robot Smoke can input the invisibility code, go invisible, and now he can input the invisibility code again and come back visible, just like Reptile can. So um, there's no, like all the relaunchers are still there. Uh, honestly, all of the cheese Cabal is still S plus tier. Kung Lao has that ridiculous infinite if you can pull it off. Night Wolf can have his way with the robots whenever he wants to. Uh, all of the standard edition 1.2 gameplay is intact. Um, so the argument for it, basically, it's like, yes, it should be the tournament standard, and of course, you ban Noob Saibot, which they've pretty much always done, and you always ban Rain because he didn't exist in the arcade until
No,
a couple years ago.
of
So,
course. Um, you being a modder for a game, we've seen it before. Some people in the gaming industry don't really like that. They put halt to a few things like Mortal Kombat 1 Mugen,
mhm.
that game that was being worked on. It was a labor of love. It was not anything for profit, and I believe it was NRS or whoever it was from the former Acclaim who cease and desist. And again, that's not the first time we've seen that. Have you gotten any cease and desist letters from people who basically own the IP that they see you may be modding their game and they think it may be for profit? Have you experienced any of that? Because like I said, a lot of the modding community, they are very careful. They do it as a labor of love, but you always have to watch out for that. What are your experiences with that?
I have not received anything like that at all. Daniel Pacina, who plays Johnny Cage, of course,
Of course, yeah.
um, he and Paul actually have developed a good rapport and a good relationship, and he thinks the MK Plus games are really cool. Um, uh, I sent a picture to John Turk on his Facebook page, like, hey, look, you're the most credited actor in any MK game ever because the extra credits, they have Noob Saibot and Rain in them now, so you got like John Turk is like 9 different characters, and he thought that was pretty, he liked that. Uh, have I gotten anything from developers? I have not. Nothing from John Tobias, nothing from Ed Boon. Um, no cease and desist, although I'm sure someday that will come along. Like I bet if with the next gen consoles and MK12 or whatever, they have some kind of basically another rendition of MK Arcade collection with hopefully God with better netcode. Uh, then I could potentially see getting something to say stop what you're doing.
So you're
Uh,
safe for now.
for
Hmm.
now, I think so because I didn't get into this to make untold riches. I didn't, I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool that people want to play the game. I look at MortalKombatPlus.com and it's got close to like 3,000 downloads, as well as a couple dozen people have had it put in their arcade machines. The chips have been
Oh
burned
wow.
to ROMs and put in their arcade machines. I think that's the coolest thing in the world. That's something that I've spent over 3 years working on is now showing up in people's arcades, and people are 3,000 people have downloaded this game. Like that to me is the coolest thing in the world. But if anybody thinks I got into it to make money, like, I can show you like tracking all of the PayPal contributions, of course, with a K, uh, from the contributors to the game, combined with the hours I've put into it, dude, it's like 3 cents an hour. Like I I'm not in this to make money, and Paul's not in it to make money, and nobody's in this to like make money off of it. We're just in it because we love the games, and we want to make them complete. We want to make them the best that they can be.
How much do you appreciate support from Mortal Kombat communities like Latin America, Russia, and parts of Europe where that game is still religiously played? I mean, that game, Killer Instinct, there was so much love for those games, but specifically, and we know there's a rabid fan base in Latin America, especially in parts of Venezuela and other areas, and
Yep.
especially in Russia. How much do you appreciate their support?
Immensely. So one of my friends, Victor, he goes by Parallax MK Chile. He's down in Chile, and he's a tester for the Mortal Kombat Plus games, and he streams the Plus games from time to time, and like his reactions to things, like the first time he saw brutality in UMK3 Plus, like he just lost it, and it's so cool to see that, as well as I think his name is Speed, from I think it's the Dominican Republic, maybe. He's a big time MK player, and he loved it. And actually, one of the guys from Russia. Oh boy, sorry about that. That's my cat's big butt. Um, I'm drawing a blank. I can't believe I can't remember his name. He came to the Tank Eugen. That's who it is. He came to the States a couple years ago to
Wow.
play in a tournament, uh, and he was actually going to come this year to CKK before everything happened. Like I was talking to Speed about him coming up for the tournament, and a couple guys from South America coming up for the tournament. Uh, so yeah, like having their support is awesome. Like that's like I wish I could find the link, and maybe like once the YouTube video's up and everything, I'll put a reply in there with a link. There's this kid playing on like a miniature UMK3 machine that's got UMK3 Plus on it, and he's sitting there doing Rain's combos, and then he pulls
Wow.
off Rain's brutality, and he's like starts like jumping up and down, like, oh look, I did it! It's the coolest thing ever.
I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. Obviously, you have immense love for UMK3. Who's the best player?
Right now, um, oh man, uh, I'm gonna have right now from my experience, I'm gonna have to say no doubt,
No doubt.
no
Great
doubt,
player. Love all
great
those
player.
guys, man.
The guy is a machine. Like even when you know what he's going to do, he's still going to beat you with it. That's
Nice,
how good
man.
he is.
What's next for you? Obviously, CKK has been canceled. Nothing that you could have done about it. It's just, the COVID-19 disaster, as I like to say. But what's next
Hmm.
for you, man?
Um, Continuing development of UMK3 Plus. Um, I'll be a father for the third time in like 4 days, as long as everything
Congratulations.
goes to plan. Hmm?
That's a
Was that?
congratulations.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Wait, 4 days,
Um,
August 23rd?
yes,
Oh, that's my birthday.
yes.
Name
All
him after
right.
me.
Well, uh, so there's that, and then there's just continual prepping for CKK. Like I have accumulated this mass of computers that run. They all run MAME very well, and I've tested them all. I have some pictures somewhere. Uh, McLovins came over, and we tested 7 or 8 different controllers, maybe more than that, on 4 different machines to make sure that they all worked, they all hooked up, they all worked at different times when you needed them to. All kinds of extensive testing. But also on a monthly basis, we've been doing this since May. Uh, having what I call CKK online, where we've had different events. We did UMK3, and then we did another UMK3 event for Arcade Legacy because all small businesses were going through tough times. Some of them still are, but we did a benefit for them, and we raised a good amount of money for them so they could keep their business going. We've done some MK2 events. We did an MK1 event this past weekend. So on a monthly basis, we'll do a rotation of whatever classic game, and that will help bring hype and exposure to the event. There's been several first-time players and some guys that I've spoken with that have basically said, prior to this stuff, there's no chance I'd ever show up at an offline event, but stuff like this makes me want to come out. So it's not the best quality of play, and we know that being online, but it does generate hype for the event, and it gets people excited about it.
When you say a lot of the players say to you, it's like, this is the kind of stuff that makes me come out to events, and you said do they mean FGC events in general? Do they go out of their way to avoid those? Or are they just players from the years past from arcades that want to experience that glory again of what the arcade scene was?
Oh, I can't speak for that specifically, but I would presume that it's the latter. The days of the past, the arcade tournaments and stuff like that. The FGC, especially right now, is a tricky thing to navigate. Like you saw what happened this past weekend with was it the Capcom Pro Tour?
I did. I don't think I kept up with that one.
Okay.
I'll read them. I'll read it later, most likely.
Yeah. And just with, it's like, I'm a classics player, and that's really all I'm good at, and I'll never claim to be good at anything else. And when I went to Summer Jam back in 2018, I just went to spectate, and there were and Shock was there, so I got to meet Shock in person for the first time. Conqueror was there, so I got to meet him for the first time, and some other guys too. Like I got to meet Big E. I got to meet James MK, and I got to meet AC 1984. So I got and Mike Metroid, got to meet a lot of those guys that I talked to and played with online and stuff, but I'd never met them in person. But still, there's so much else going on that it's very easy to get overwhelmed by what's going on, all the other stuff that's going on. So a lot of those guys, I think it's just especially the ones that have said I would never go to I had never gone to an offline event before, but seeing this stuff and knowing that there's a tournament that is strictly for the classics, I think that makes them want to come out.
Have you had the chance to talk to any of the other classic communities, or do all classic communities stay to themselves? Has anybody from Third Strike, called us man, that's awesome that you're doing that for that game? Has anybody from the Alpha community, say, hey, good job, it's awesome that somebody's taking a classic MK game and trying to make a small little tournament for them? Has anybody, given you any props from those communities, or again, do they just stay to themselves?
I think they kind of stay to themselves. I haven't heard anything from them, and that's fine. I mean, and they haven't heard anything from me either. So that's totally fine. I get it. I mean, they're a small community, kind of like what we are with Classic MK. So they stick to their game, we stick to ours, and it's cool, But I think it's cool that people are still playing old arcade games from the '90s, the games that I grew up playing, and now I can show them to my kids, and they can be like, hey, that's pretty cool. It's really cool when when my son who's 12 walks up and he's like, Dad, you want to play some Mortal Kombat? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Better than him begging me to play Fortnite, which I begrudgingly do sometimes.
Are the fatalities turned off?
No, of course not. It. You know, people are like, oh well, he shouldn't be able to do that. That's unrealistic. Oh, you're right. So being able to take a spear to the heart and it only taking off like 4% of your health, that's realistic. So you're telling me you can get hit with a spear 25 times in your chest and not die and just get knocked out. Okay, yeah, let's talk about realism.
And on that note, my friend, this is going to do it for this episode, Drew. Thank you very much for being here. And before we leave, of course, what are your social media outlets?
Let's see. Oh boy. YouTube, TehDrewsus. That's youtube.com/TehDrewsus. Twitter is TehDrewsus_MK.
TehDrewsus, guys. That's how you reach him, and look out for more stuff for Mortal Kombat Plus, specifically UMK3. That's Drew. I'm Raphael, and this was another fun episode of KPBCast, guys. Have yourself a good night and take care. Thanks, Drew, man. A lot of fun.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You win.
This has been a KPB MediaWorks production.